gone. No more at the new Chase Center after this last attempt. He said, quote, he shed a tear after realizing it yesterday. Nick, will you miss the tunnel shot?
Hell yeah, but not as much as Steph. Because Steph really is bummed out about this, and I think there's a realization around the organization. Things are not what they used to be. As great as this arena is, it just doesn't have the charm right now that Oracle
He'll
did.
find a new one, trust me. He can shoot anywhere in the gym. He'll find a new one.
Give him the other side. Impress me, Steph Curry. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Amin Elhassan in for Rachel Nichols. Today I'm joined by our Warriors reporter Nick Pradell and 2008 Finals MVP Paul Pierce.
What up, what up?
Welcome back from Australia. Coming up, Kawhi made his preseason debut last night. Do you expect his finals dominance to carry over? We'll discuss. But first, Steph Curry dropped 40 points in 25 minutes of preseason action last night. There's been a lot of talk about how KD's exit and Klay's injury will impact Steph, and I think we saw a glimpse of that last night. Paul, did Curry put the league on notice with his performance last night?
The league has been on notice. This is the two-time MVP. Trust me, nobody forgot who this guy is. I mean, everybody's aware he doesn't have KD. He's not going to have Klay for half the season. Come on, he's going to be in the MVP run, and he didn't have to score 40 for people to be on notice.
I'm with Paul completely. Everybody knew Steph was capable of this with or without KD, with or without Klay. The difference for me, guys, is this. I do not believe they're going to play Steph heavy minutes at all.
Right.
So everybody who's saying, all right, he can win the MVP. Steph's unbelievable. He can do seemingly anything he wants to on the basketball floor. But I don't believe you can win MVP when you're playing 30, 32 minutes a night and you're potentially sitting out some games to get some extra rest in.
I think it's interesting because on the one hand, I think we all know he can, but should he, right? Because of the added burden. They don't want to run through it. But at the same time, you look at this roster, it's not a whole lot of depth. And a lot of those guys on that coming off the bench are inexperienced guys. So which way do you think the Warriors are leaning as far as how much they're going to lean on Steph Curry?
I think they're going to lean on him a lot in the beginning, but Steve Kerr made this point last night. We were always leaning on Steph.
Right.
That they knew exactly what he represented, and this is why I caution everybody about this season. This is for any team in the league, but if Steph Curry goes down, forget it.
Yeah.
We aren't going to see Klay. Klay, they're going to say, hey, Klay, let's pump the brakes on that return. It changes the dynamic of everything because he is so crucial to everything they do, especially offensively. But everybody has been on this hype train of Steph's going to run through the league and dominate. He already dominated. He's already proven that. So you, if you're the Warriors, have to rest him to a point where he's ready to go in April and potentially May and not worry so much about what his numbers may be early in the year.
But I think Steph, he's motivated, I think. I think he really wants to show people, like, look, I still got it. I still am arguably the best player, and I'm still an MVP out here. He took a step back. So the Warriors want to make the playoffs. So he's going to have to play more minutes than he did last year. He's going to have to carry a certain load until Klay gets back. So I think his minutes will be up in the first few months of the season to where he's going to show, like, look, I can still lead the league in scoring. I can still be that dynamic player. And he doesn't have the luxury of, like, taking time off or sitting back and watching somebody else go off if this team want to succeed in the regular season. Because I've said this before, they're one injury away from Draymond or him getting hurt to not making the playoffs.
Well, I want to ask you, because early in your career with the Celtics, you guys were successful, went to conference finals, and then people started changing to, like the personnel change, and you were kind of last man standing. What was that like, that transition from, hey, we're one of the contenders to now we're not quite?
I just felt like at that moment, I was like, look, we're heading in a certain direction. We get to the conference finals. Let's build on that. Look, Golden State's been 5 straight finals. Right. But for me, it was like very discouraging. It was just like, I'm starting to hit my prime. I'm my 4th, 5th, 6th year, and the team is regressing. We're rebuilding again. Mm-hmm. This is what it started as a rebuild when I first got there. And then I'm in my prime making all-star teams. We get to the conference finals, and then we strip the team down again. That was the most discouraging thing for me, and it took a lot of motivation out of me for a couple years. I'm not going to even lie about it.
We'll see what happens over there. All right, let's move on to a more serious topic. The NBA says it won't be holding media availability for the rest of the 2019 China Games. Sources told our Dave McMenamin the league is making this decision independent of Chinese authorities. Here's a statement released by the NBA. Quote, we have decided not to hold media availability for our teams for the remainder of our trip to China. They have been placed into a complicated and unprecedented situation while abroad, and we believe it would be unfair to ask them to address these matters in real time. Paul, as a player, how relieved would you be if this decision came from above while you were playing in China?
I think that's great. I think Adam Silver and all the GMs and owners probably had discussed this. They've done so much damage with the relationship of China. There's no need to do any further damage by anybody commenting on the situation. I mean, we all know that our Chinese partnership is one of our great partnerships with the league. So it's fine. They could pull up, cover their mouths, shut them up. Let's muzzle it up, right? And let's play the game, and we'll figure this out later. We'll have discussions on how this relationship can get back on track.
Nick, I had this discussion with a couple of my buddies in the group chat who also cover the league, and they think it's a bad look, the idea that we are restricting media access and that the media should be allowed to ask anything. Are they towing a line between accountability and protecting the players?
They're walking a tightrope the likes of which the league has never seen before. And the issue here, guys, is the NBA has made their bed, and now they have to lay in it. And the Warriors are a microcosm of that, because one of the core principles of the organization is to speak up on social causes you believe in, and to stand behind what you believe. But of course, on this topic, when you don't come out and make any stand, you're going to get crushed. And I think the Warriors are a test case for the NBA, because they're looking around saying, how do we figure this out? What is the right answer? The reality is there is no right answer. Because either you come out and you decry what is happening in China and you lose all that financial revenue, or you say, oh, you know what, like everything's good here. We're going to keep our partnerships, and everybody here gets upset. So no matter what Steph Curry says, whatever Steve Kerr says, they're going to get annihilated by somebody.
We'll get to what Steve said in a bit, but I want to ask you, are you surprised how much backlash Steve Kerr specifically has received? Everyone from the President of the United States to people on both sides of the aisle, basically criticizing Steve Kerr for not doing enough or not saying enough in this situation.
Yeah, but when you speak out the way Steve and his players have over time, this is what's going to happen. And guys, this is such a tightrope. I think in the moment, to Paul's point, I think it is the right move, because in a decade and a half covering the NBA, I have never seen players and coaches so flummoxed on what to say. And that right there is why Steve is getting hammered, because Steve has been this pillar of strength for the league. Specific to gun violence, because it's an awful, terrible tragedy that he went through with his father. But when you speak out like that, people from the other side are going to look for ways to get at you. And they have found their way. He is a political missile at this point. I mean, everything is everybody's waiting to see how Steve responds. And the thing, personally, as much as I respect Steve personally and professionally, the thing I didn't like last night is he said he has the right to not comment in certain situations. And he's right about that. But he was asked specifically about Daryl Morey and people in the league speaking out on certain issues. And he says, I choose not to comment. That is his right. But when you have made that public stance over and over on a variety of issues, and then that specific stance in this specific conversation relates to your league and by proxy your team, and you don't say anything, you're going to get hammered.
Paul, really quick, how fair is it for players to be asked to comment on something said by someone who's I'm not his boss, but he doesn't even work for my team. It's a different team. How fair is it that players have to answer for what Daryl Morey said?
I mean, Daryl Morey, he said something that, he can't take back. But a lot of things the players don't know. They don't understand the situation that's going over there. So, they can't really comment on it. So, like, Daryl, I think he's an isolated situation that's been taken out on the league, but it's a tough situation. I mean, because it's a family affair. I mean, one guy said it, we're all in it together, and it's been taken out. So, the players are in a tough situation, and hopefully they'll figure this thing out.
All right. Well, Steve Kerr was called, quote, a little boy by President Trump for the way he answered questions regarding the NBA's current political situation in China over fallout from that deleted Daryl Morey tweet supporting the protests in Hong Kong. Yesterday, Kerr responded at his media availability before the Warriors preseason game. Here's Kerr in his own words to take us to the break.
It was really surprising, but mainly just because it was me, and then you stop and you think, well, this is just every day. It's just another day. So I was the shiny object yesterday. There was another one today. There'll be a new one tomorrow, and the circus will go on. So it's just strange, but it happened. I did think about last night. I was thinking about my various visits to the White House. I've lived a privileged life and met, I think, the past 5 presidents prior to President Trump. The first one was in 1984, and Ronald Reagan was president. And he invited my mom and me 6 months after my dad was killed in a terrorist attack. And President Reagan and Vice President Bush invited us into the Oval Office and spent about half an hour with us, thanking us for my dad's service. He was in education, thanking us for my dad's commitment to trying to share American values in the Middle East, trying to promote peace in the Middle East. And all I could think of last night was the contrast of what has happened in 35 years. And, there was no regard for, whose side you were on politically, political party, anything like that. It was just you were an American. And the office held such dignity and respect, both from the people who were visiting and especially from the people who sat inside it. And it's just sad that it's come crashing down and that we are now living this. And I realized the horse was out of the barn a long time ago on this, but for me personally, this was my experience with, wow, has the office sunken low. And so my hope is that we can find a mature unifier from either party to sit in that chair and try to restore some dignity to the Oval Office again. And I think it'll happen. Anyone want to talk about pick and roll coverage tonight?